Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're really diving into something profound. The power and the real purpose behind the teachings of Jesus Christ. Yeah, we're drawing from chapter 8, which relies quite a bit on Navid Sadley's work, specifically the wisdom of Christ, transforming the heart with the word of the kingdom. And this isn't just, theory. It's about an internal shift, a real revolution.
That's exactly it. Our goal today really is to get past just acknowledging these words historically or intellectually. We want to explore that how were these teachings actually designed for, well, a deep fundamental transformation of the heart.
Right. The sources seem to say the words were the tools and the heart. That was the construction site.
Precisely.
What always gets me is just how ambitious that goal was. I mean, you picture Jesus talking to everyday people, fishermen, tax collectors, often just, by a lake or on a street corner. The setting seems so simple, but the aim. What was the real power behind those words?
Well, the sources are pretty direct about it. The ultimate goal was nothing short of a complete inner transformation. They use this term, tahaval.
Tahaval.
Yeah. And it's more than just, say, self-help or changing habits. It's about establishing what Sadley calls the wisdom of the kingdom, this divine way of living, by fundamentally reconstructing the very core of who we are. His words weren't just nice ideas. They were like blueprints for the soul.
Okay, tahaval. Let's unpack that. If it's reconstruction, you need a plan, right?
Right.
And the first place the sources point us is the Sermon on the Mount, which honestly feels like it turns everything the world values completely upside down.
It absolutely does. It's a total revolution in values.
Yeah.
And it can be deeply unsettling if you're used to how the world measures success, power, wealth, being on top, self-reliance.
Yeah.
The sermon just sets those aside.
Right. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the meek. It's jarring.
It really is. And that's the kingdom's charter, its manifesto. The focus shifts entirely to things like humility, mercy, acknowledging our need, qualities the world often writes off as weakness. But here's the paradox the sources highlight. Real strength, lasting happiness, according to this wisdom, is found exactly where the world sees vulnerability or even failure. The metrics are just completely different.
Okay, but I have to push on this a bit. How is being poor in spirit, which sounds like lacking confidence, how is that a blessed state? Modern life screams at us to be assertive, self-assured. If tahaval is reconstruction, why start by seemingly tearing down self-reliance?
That's a great question, and it gets to the core insight here. Think about worldly success driven by pride or the need for control. It creates immense internal pressure, right? You constantly need external validation.
Sure.
By embracing being poor in spirit, which really means genuine humility, recognizing you don't have all the answers, being honest about your imperfections, you're actually freed from the burden of maintaining that worldly image. So this reversal, this initial step, it creates the necessary space, the emptiness, if you will, in the heart, where the new foundation, the kingdom's wisdom, can actually be laid. If you're already full of self-importance or worldly values, there's just no room for tahaval to even begin.
Ah, okay. That connects the dots. Humility isn't the final product. It's the ground clearing needed before you can build.
Exactly. It's the essential first step.
So if the sermon lays out this radical new internal design, how did Jesus make these complex ideas accessible? He wasn't writing dense philosophy. He told simple stories, parables, like the sower or the prodigal son. Why that approach? Why the simplicity?
Well, that really shows the teaching genius at work, doesn't it? Parables were like bridges. They took these huge, complex, divine ideas about God's nature, grace, eternity, and translated them instantly into the language of everyday life: farming, baking, finances, family drama.
Things people understood intimately.
Right. It made the abstract tangible, memorable. A farmer hearing the parable of the sower could immediately connect it to his own experience, but see the deeper spiritual layer about how people receive truth. It brought the kingdom down to earth, you could say, making sure the message wasn't locked away for just scholars or the elite.
And the prodigal son, that one resonates so widely.
It does, and the sources remind us it's far more than just a story about a kid coming home. It's this incredibly powerful picture of God's own heart. God waiting, arms open, eagerly looking for the return of every single person, no matter how lost they are, how much they've messed up.
That says so much about inherent value, doesn't it? The father running out to meet the son, the shepherd leaving the 99. That's not exactly an efficient use of resources by modern standards.
Not at all, and that's the point. The parables drive home the infinite value God places on each individual soul. And internalizing that value, that you are worth that kind of divine pursuit, that's absolutely crucial for the tahaval process. It rebuilds your sense of self-worth based on kingdom values, not worldly judgment.
Okay, now we get to maybe the most challenging part of this reconstruction project, the call for boundless love. Specifically, loving enemies, praying for those who persecute you. I mean, given the eye for an eye culture back then, how radically disruptive was that teaching?
Oh, was utterly revolutionary, completely structure breaking. For ages, the default was reciprocity. Be good to your friends and get even with your enemies. Jesus just wiped away that line. Friend, foe, the command applied. And this is so important. The sources stress that this love isn't about feeling warm fuzzies or just passively tolerating abuse. Connecting back to Tahabal, this kind of love is defined as an active, conscious choice. It's a decision you make with your will, not just an emotion that washes over you.
An active decision. But how does someone actually do that, especially when facing real hostility? It sounds almost superhuman, choosing love when everything inside is yelling, fight back or run away.
Well, the sources frame it as the ultimate way to break those ancient destructive cycles. Hatred just leads to more hatred. Revenge guarantees retaliation. By actively choosing love, or even just praying for an enemy's well-being, you inject something completely new into the dynamic, a non-reciprocal force. You stop just reacting and become an initiator of something different, potentially peace. And making that choice, that's a massive engine for internal transformation. It forces your heart to operate way outside its normal self-protective instincts. It's really what sets the kingdom standard apart, and it ties directly back to loving God and loving your neighbor, because suddenly your neighbor includes everyone, even the person causing you pain.
What gives all of this such weight, I think, is how perfectly Jesus' actions lined up with his words. His life wasn't just commentary on the message, his life was the message. It showed that Tahavel wasn't just a nice idea, but actually possible.
That consistency, that congruence was absolutely vital, yes. Without it, the radical nature of the teaching, loving enemies, embracing humility to the point of death, it could have all just been dismissed as, unrealistic philosophy. His actions gave it undeniable credibility.
Yeah.
Think about specific moments the sources might highlight. Forgiving his executioners from the cross, or that incredibly humbling act of washing his disciples' feet, taking the role of the lowest servant. These weren't just object lessons, they demonstrated the teaching.
They brought the words to life.
Exactly. They showed that real leadership, real authority in this kingdom looks like service and self-giving, not power and control. His entire life was proof that this kind of transformation, this tahaval, was actually achievable for human beings.
Okay, so we've touched on the key elements from the sources. The value shift towards humility, the accessible wisdom in parables, the active choice of radical love, and the credibility grounded in his life. Let's bring it home for the listener. How do these ancient teachings stay relevant, stay vital right here, right now?
Their power is timeless because, fundamentally, they address the unchanging core of the human heart. They're not just speaking to first-century cultural issues, they're speaking directly to our own struggles with pride, fear, selfishness, anger, the things we all deal with. So the invitation to tahavel, to stable, lasting transformation, is just as real today. And the sources, especially Sadley's work as cited, draw a really crucial line when it comes to application. The key to being truly rooted in this word, as he might put it, and actually seeing that transformation happen, isn't just hearing it. It's not even just agreeing with it intellectually.
It has to move beyond that.
It has to move into action. Hearing is information, but it's the acting on the teachings that leads to transformation.
Okay, so hearing gets you the blueprint, but acting is actually building the house.
That's a great way to put it. The path to truly recognizing the truth and finding the real freedom that comes with it, freedom from sin, fear, lies, all of it, only opens up when we start implementing these teachings. It's not passive, it demands our participation. If we don't apply the wisdom, the foundation we're trying to rebuild stays weak.
That really ties it all together. This whole framework of wisdom is aimed at nothing less than the complete transformation of our hearts, moving from chasing worldly success to embracing humility, from reactive emotion to conscious love, and critically, from just hearing the message to actively living by it.
And that brings us to a really practical final thought drawn right from the teachings themselves. Remember that parable Jesus told about building a house? One builder builds on sand just hearing the words. The other builds on solid rock.
By putting the words into practice.
Exactly. Hearing, accepting, and then doing the work. So the invitation for you, the listener, today is quite simple. Think about just one teaching we've talked about. Maybe it's practicing genuine humility in a conversation you know will be difficult. Or maybe it's extending a concrete act of kindness or prayer towards someone you currently find it hard to even think about nicely. If you were to commit to seriously applying just that one thing today, How might that single active choice start to build a stronger foundation in your own life? A foundation that, as the parable suggests, can actually stand firm when the inevitable storms and challenges hit. That, according to the sources, is where the real lasting power of this wisdom is found.
A powerful and practical challenge to end on. Thanks for walking us through that, and thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time, keep digging, stay curious.